as opposed to the first half when I did America, I'm going to start this half doing Russia. And my first poem requires 2 speakers. So I asked my friend Marie Mora to come and be my assistant. Whoops. Fear in the age of optimism. We sleep awake, our ears tuned like tuning forks, motor stopping in the street, tramping in the courtyard, stamping up the stairs, 30 seconds of guillotine silence.
The police machine.
Bang, 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 bang! I retch with relief, fear, sympathy. It is the door of the apartment opposite. A muffled shuffling, whispered goodbye, a strangled scream.
Tomorrow, smiles at the workplace. Soon, a parade.
Within the country, there is a new country.
Soon, a parade.
The little suitcase is packed, always by the door. Warm socks, some biscuits and tea, a photograph of Nina.
How long before we are mad?
Railway to icy nowhere.
Shall we walk by the shimmering water, catch fleeting shadows there?
Winter. The waters are suddenly sluggish, soup-like, a mute gasp away from freezing.
Unspoken thoughts collect in the soul, collect like rocks.
Fear runs like a thread down the curtains. Fear is in the pipes.
Fear is beneath our dreams.
The great railway engineer.
The great gardener.
Fear sits heavy on us like an illness. I shun sincerity.
Memory, a jewel most rare and valuable.
Memory is defined by each day's newspaper. Do not keep diaries. Do not keep letters.
To be unpersoned.
I can recite the news, the yields, our history, our achievements. Life is bountiful.
To be unpersoned.
We do not have children. What would we tell them? When would we tell them?
To be unpersoned.
I am in Nina. I love her. Can I trust her? Can Nina trust me? Can I trust myself? Is her face a mask?
To be unpersoned.
Now, I haven't been to Russia, but some of this derives from my parents-in-law. A mother. Life has to be ordinary. Life has to continue. I did not see my parents again. Neither did I see my aunts and uncles. I know they have been murdered. I have not been back to the house where I was born, or the village, or the nearby city. I do not know whether the house where I was born is still standing. My family do not have a grave, not even a marker. Life has to be ordinary. I have a daughter. A father. The spikes on the wire are colder than cold. The gruel in the cup is thinner than thin. The trees we chop are harder than hard. My skin aches. My bones are brittle. In me, a little boy perishing. Later, I see so much killing. Death is a familiar. I find, later, my mother and father have been murdered. My brothers and sisters have been murdered. The house and business are gone. I find a woman and we marry. We have a daughter. One of the reasons I became so interested in Russian history is through music. This poem is called In Bed with Shostakovich. I listen over and over to Shostakovich's Fourth, that wild, hairy, unkempt teenager of a symphony, the problem child, the one he had to withdraw after the debacle of Lady Macbeth, because he knew it was eclectic, and it was formalist, and it would have incurred the wrath, and there would have been a knock at night, the silent car, and the gulag, the White Sea Canal, or a bullet in the basement of the Lubyanka, because all of Meyerhold, Kalms, Zilyev, Solotinsky, Mayakovsky, Mandelstam had been, or were to be, tortured, shot, suicided, or grounded to death. And I listen over and over to Shostakovich's Fourth, which lay hidden, the wild genius of it, for 25 years, until well after Uncle Joe's death. And what a fucking holiday that should be. The great leader and teacher, the cunt. So I listened to Shostakovich's Fourth, the huge, wild, disparate aggregation of it, the young composer assembling chunks like bric-a-brac, jamming it together, some lyrical, tender, some vulgar, some jaunty, impish, playful, some terrifying, some utterly, despairingly sad, the whole wild bag of it, a piece I've known for decades, and sometimes loved, and sometimes railed against, and was frustrated by, and now I think I get it. I think I get it. It coheres, it persuades, and this is the soundtrack to the 20th century, the whole bloody 20th century, which I think of as my century. My century, because I feel increasingly like a guest in the 21st. And I listen to the whole hour-long slammed together brutalist mass of it. And as it finally winds down, after all the tumult, the climaxes, the shrill piccolos, the pretty dances, as it finally winds down, there is plaintive woodwind over a pulse of throbbing lower strings, still alive, still joyful, children in a meadow. And suddenly, again, the juggernaut, trampling through everything, grinding through everything, obliterating everything, loud, brash, unrelenting. It sweeps through in grimacing triumph and leaves what? The pulse. Again, but slower, like a failing heart. And at the end, at the very end, the Celesta, the beautiful, ethereal Celesta, a rising, fragile figure on the Celesta. And at the very, very end, the very, very end, a lone, weak, muted trumpet, shallow breath. And again, finally, at the very, very end, the fragile, frail, forlorn Celesta, and everything that was, civilization, creativity, courage, love, all has expired. So, Kate, don't be ashamed of writing cat poems. Love, death and cats is what we do. And I will read not only a cat poem, but a poem about my favourite radio station, which doesn't exist, Radio Pussycat. If I was stinking rich, absolutely stinking rich, I wouldn't buy a football team, and I wouldn't support the opera house. No. If I was stinking, absolutely stinking rich, I'd buy myself a radio station and broadcast from nation unto nation. I'd fire the prattling, self-regarding disc jockeys. In fact, I'd have them shot. I'm rich, I can do that. And I'd re-employ all the poor old has-beens who were kicked out of Radio 3, those guys who always got the time wrong. I'd have poets as presenters and certified drunks as hosts for the late-night talk show. There'd be no phone-ins, except, perhaps, for people who had lost their pussycats. I might have a radio psychiatrist, but he'd be lazier than Frasier, and his sole advice to the hazier and crazier would be, ditch him, get a life, or even better, get a cat. And my station would not insist on the news on the hour, every hour, and we wouldn't give a fuck about the traffic. In fact, I'd scrap the news. Except, perhaps, for a specialist team of crack journalists who would report on people who had found their pussycats. As owner, I would dictate music policy such that Ambrose rubbed shoulders with Shostakovich and Jeff Beck with John Coltrane, and we'd play Isolde's Liebestod for those listeners still with their partners. We'd broadcast to the Balkans and transmit to Tasmania all the good news about pussycats, with their tails erect like aerials and their little pink bottoms which they managed to keep so clean. Visitors to the station would trip over food bowls and litter trays and find cats copulating in the control room, kittens in the cassette rack, and a warm tabby on the turntable. There'd be no audience surveys, no focus groups, no marketing, and we wouldn't give a toss about the ratings. I am rich, don't forget. We wouldn't carry commercials, except perhaps for cat flaps and flea collars, but they'd get their airtime for free. And in the wee small hours, the world would be enveloped with the sound of purring, like radiation. Thank you.
Very powerful set from Graham. So more applause, please, for Graham Buck. Really good stuff. And Kate, your whale poem, was it about the Thames whale?
Yeah.
I thought it was. Yeah. Sad moment. Okay, well, we don't like to leave you without a song in your heart, maybe a few. So welcome back to close our evening, the wonderful Lizzie Shirley.
Yeah, just, can you procrastinate a bit?
Oh, okay, I need to procrastinate a bit.
That's right now.